Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hi, this is Nick Anastasiou, story editor on Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Bad Batch. And you are listening to Aggressive Negotiations.
Welcome to Aggressive Negotiations, a Star Wars podcast that likes to do things a little bit differently, coming at you from one of those deep levels on Coruscant. I don't know, 2013, 13, 14, I don't remember which one. It's so hard to keep track out here. But with me, as he is always enjoying a nice Jamba Juice, Jedi Master John Mills.
You know what? I cannot enjoy anything but Jamba Juice because I've got a bit of an intergalactic hut thing going on with my gut right now, and I'm just trying to settle that down and get into some good conversation here as we explore this galaxy far, far away in our very comfortable. I have to say I don't know what type of detergent they're using, but these Jedi robes much more comfortable than they used to be.
Absolutely.
A little bit looser, a little bit nicer. I like this. I like this.
They must use Downy or something like that. So,
I was thinking that they used what's the one with the teddy bear? Snuggle.
Yeah, Snuggle.
Snuggle.
Yes.
So there you go. I mean,
it's got to
be comfortable
on the
if you're going to
front.
fight Sith.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank everybody who are joining us. Of course, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you happen to be on Apple Podcasts, we'd love a starter rating review. That definitely helps people find the show. Of course, you can also find us on Twitter at The Jedi Masters, and the entire network is at Join Nerd Party. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdparty, and in nerdparty.com is a place you can go where you can see all of the things that we are doing on the network, which hopefully you will check out everything we've got going on. But John, so I have kind of not really surprised because we did talk a little bit before we started the show, but it was more of a surprise thing that I've been hearing quite a bit since the Clone Wars final season wrapped up, and this was kind of spurred on by the fact that it just won a Saturn Award, which well-deserved. Absolutely 100% agree with this winning a Saturn Award. I just don't think that anything else matches, the Clone Wars when it comes to best animated television shows. It just doesn't.
Well, especially in the genre, and honestly, for shows that helped me, any type of filmed entertainment that helped me survive the mental craziness of 2020.
Yes,
it was a blessed life raft in a sea of craziness. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. And so, but I consistently hear from people, and in fact, even just heard today from a friend of mine, that they don't like the Ahsoka Walkabout episodes. And so I want to throw that to you with, do you like them? And why do you think that they hold up and or were necessary for the final season of the Clone Wars?
Terrific question, or a couple of questions, or however you want to frame it. So just so everybody knows, the Walkabout episodes is not the Phantom Apprentice, is not the arc that occurs at the end of the season wherein, we find out what's going on with Ahsoka and Maul concurrently with Revenge of the Sith. These are the episodes where we meet the sisters, where Ahsoka has left the Order and is trying to find her place in the galaxy, in life, now that the Jedi Order is no longer a part of it. Because she's been in the Jedi Order since she was a child. She's literally left the one world she knows to go out and experience things in the galaxy. I enjoy the episodes a lot. And for everything else, besides the fact that I just enjoy the episodes, the sound editing love marks that are in there are brilliant and really appeal to somebody like me who's sort of like a sound obsessive with shows and everything. And I think that they're very important because we're getting back to Ahsoka before that final arc. We can't just jump to that final arc, and we can't just suddenly have Ahsoka show up. We have to put her frame of mind and the state of the galaxy back in front of us so that we understand. I mean, this arc, let me throw it back to you. I think that this arc is incredibly, incredibly important to show why people were willing to believe the Jedi had turned into villains, because they were sort of already there. Like when Sidious in Revenge of the Sith comes out there, and the first time you see Revenge of the Sith, he says, although this attack on my life has left me scarred and deformed, I assure you my resolve has never been stronger. And to us, as people who have spent 6 movies knowing that the Jedi are the best people, they're not necessarily the good guys all the time, but they're the best guys that we've seen up to this point, it's jarring. We know Palpatine's lying. Why would people go along with this outside of corruption? And then Ahsoka's Walkabout, we discover precisely why people are willing to go along with it, because their perception of the Jedi sucks.
Right.
They don't like them at all.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
I think that you've absolutely nailed the exact reason why these episodes are important for the Star Wars galaxy. Is that these episodes, we have, any fan had been walking through all of these seasons of the Clone Wars, and I think almost more than any episodes that we get, this contextualizes the war outside of the factions to which we've been following the most, which are the Jedi, the clones, and the Separatists. And what just normal, everyday people feel about this war, about the Jedi, and about their lives because of that. The impact that this war has had on people, and the impact the Jedi have had on people. And because they are so all consumed with fighting this war, they have lost the ability to be who they were meant to be, which was to take care of the galaxy. And as we see specifically with the Martez sisters, their experience with the Jedi is, yes, they are saved, but then they're left to fend for themselves because the Jedi have other things on their minds. They have other things that are keeping them from truly interceding and helping people from start to finish, Yeah. And I think that really puts into perspective then, we already see Ahsoka at the end of season 5 walking away from the Jedi for, I think, very good reasons. She's come to understand that there's something wrong there. She's been betrayed by them. And she also realizes, I think, that there's something deep-seatedly wrong with the Jedi in the way that they're conducting themselves. I think, from her experience with what happens in that final arc as she walks away, but also I think from her experience of walking around with Obi-Wan and Anakin by her side and seeing this dichotomy of between those two people, especially what the Jedi could be and what they're not. And you put all of that together within her experience with these two sisters, it expands on who she's going to become as a person and really cements then who she will be moving forward as we move into that final arc, as well as all the way into who she'll be throughout Rebels.
I mean, as we've said and gone back and forth on, Ahsoka approaches the perfect Jedi, and the true Jedi. And that's fascinating on its own levels, but I think you definitely have your finger on it here. And I think it opens up that question because the Martez sisters sit there and they say, oh, well, we were left to fend on our own. The Jedi, for all their ideals, they leave us here. They fight their battle and they go on. And I think it goes back even to how much the Jedi have lost their way, going back to episode 2, where Windu says, we're keepers of the peace, not soldiers. And it really emphasizes the fact that Palpatine's master maneuver is to screw up the Jedi Order in that their focus is off. And even encountering the Martez sisters, it becomes an interesting question of, which we've touched on in past episodes, past discussions. What does it look like if the Jedi refuse to get involved and all they do is care for the people affected by the war? And they just refuse to get involved. And so the clones and the droids can fight, but the Jedi themselves stay out of that and help people like the Martez sisters and do what they're supposed to do and protect them. And the only time the Jedi go into action is specifically not to defend the Republic, not to keep this corrupt government going, but to keep the people safe so that no matter what happens, they they're keepers of the peace. They've kept people safe. And so I think that it's important for Ahsoka to get that perspective, specifically because it additionally, I think, really reinforces why when she does go back in the Phantom Apprentice arc, why she doesn't ask to rejoin the Order. She's had time to think. We see what she's been thinking. We see what she's encountered. And there's no question that she's not going to come back and say, can I be a Jedi again? She's seen firsthand now exactly how crappy the Jedi have been. She's never going to ask to come back.
Yeah, and I think, it gives you an opportunity to see, too, why she would choose to go on this mission and why she would be working to help Bo-Katan specifically in the first place. When she contacts Anakin and Obi-Wan, she's already working with them. Why? Because there are people in need. There are people who are being oppressed. There are people who nobody is looking out for because they haven't chosen a quote-unquote side in the political argument of the war, and therefore they're being left to hang out to dry by the Jedi themselves because the Jedi are so beholden to the Republic that they can't intercede and people who have a genuine need because it is inconvenient for the political leanings of where they've landed on a side of the aisle. In fact, the Jedi should be in the middle of the aisle. They shouldn't be on either side of the aisle, and that's really the biggest problem here. And so I think this helps us understand exactly as to why Ahsoka would have taken this mantle up to try and protect Mandalore, especially with, what's happening there.
Mm-hmm. And I think that it's also very telling that the Martez sisters they're experiencing all of these things in the shadow of the Jedi Temple, essentially. It's not like Ahsoka has to go across the galaxy to find this difficulty. It's right there on the doorstep of the Republic capital. And and we may sit here and we might beat up the Jedi, but it also shows how the government itself fails people when those people don't fit the political goals or whims of those who are seeking power.
Yes.
And that gets to the real root of so many things that are at the core of when Lucas established Star Wars about this there's this fascinating aspect to it where there's this distrust of the bureaucracy and the power hungry that exists, that is there in the text the whole time. And a situation like the Martez sisters underlines the fact that when you have a system that is so caught up on you have to be on one side or the other, you have to be on a side, those who have not chosen a side have no advocate. They have no champion. They have nobody to help them. And while you could make the argument as well, I think that what's fascinating about that is that Ahsoka falls in with the Martez sisters, but they're still, I would argue, not really the people that you would say the Jedi should be helping because they've gone down a criminal path. They've gone down this less noble path. But at the same time, what I think is fascinating is it's Ahsoka's presence, love, and compassion for them that actually helps to bring them back to a better path so that when we re-meet them In the Bad Batch, they are acting with more noble intent. So Ahsoka winds up becoming sort of a redeeming figure, the way that the Jedi envisioned Anakin would be, by doing kindness to those that society has left on the edges and giving them a path back toward finding the light.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right in that, because, and one of the beautiful things about this is the storyline shows that the Barthez sisters are on kind of the other side of the aisle law-wise. And yet they're the ones who reach out to Ahsoka. They take care of Ahsoka when Ahsoka is in need, and nobody else is there for her. Part of that is their experience of having the same thing happen to them. They're just left to fend for themselves, so they help somebody else in need. And like you said, Ahsoka's innate goodness helps them become better people again, because they have somebody to show them the way, show them the light of the Jedi. And at the same time, this whole this whole arc allows us to be able to have Ahsoka be at the right place at the right time, to understand that Maul is back to his old games of controlling the underworld, and that's going to lead us to where we get in the final season. And so there is this fortuitous force event that happens that allows her to be in the right place at the right time, so then she can be where she needs to be for that final arc. And so I think... So I gotta ask you the question: why do you then think that it is that people don't enjoy these episodes? What is it about these episodes do you think that people just kind of bristle at?
If I can be so bold, it's because of the lack of Anakin and Obi-Wan. I think that there are a lot of people who don't know how to relate to Ahsoka without that. To this point, they didn't watch Rebels. So this is their first time encountering Ahsoka without that support structure, that story support structure around her. And the fact that it picks up her story at a pivotal moment, maybe enough time has passed that the impact of Ahsoka's departure is a little bit diluted. So, for instance, it had this arc come out when it was supposed to. You compress the timeline, and we're much closer to when Ahsoka left the temple. And so the emotional resonance, these themes we're talking about, are much more accessible to those who have been in the show. Whereas you and I, we've rewatched arcs, at a whim, and we revisit the series on a regular basis, and we do these deep dives, and people might not have that easy accessibility point to it. I think that sometimes people bristle at some of the world building that happens in this arc, especially with Kessel, which has huge payoff with Solo. And so Solo wasn't watched by a ton of people, so maybe the Kessel stuff doesn't thrill them quite the same way that, say, you and I, they go to Kessel and it's like, yeah, wow, that's my thing. That's my jam. That's what I want to see. Whereas they're, that's a different relational process with them. But honestly, I'll go ahead and relay to you. I mean, I want to find out what your thoughts are on it too, because before we started recording, when you said, there are people that don't like this arc, and I believe my first reaction was, seriously? It's bizarre to me that they don't. I consider this such... I'm not going to go so far as to say, oh, well, this is one of the best arcs in the show. It isn't. It's, they're arcs that are much more emotionally stirring and affecting. But I think that this is a very important puzzle piece that then pays off not just in the Phantom Apprentice, but pays off with the Mandalorian. Because you see her essentially in the same sort of role in the Mandalorian, where she's helping people in need. Just like she does in Rebels. There are people in need. So of course she's going to be there, and she's going to be fulcrum. And then with the Mandalorian, there are people in need, and sure, she's trying to track down Thrawn and by extension Ezra, but she's helping these people in need who need a champion. And so she has become, to borrow a phrase from Pulp Fiction, she's become like Kane from Kung Fu. She's just walking the earth, having stories happen. She's following the path.
I think that the reason that people don't enjoy this episode, this group of episodes, is because they knew that this was the final season of the Clone Wars. And this isn't what they wanted. They wanted, and a part of this, especially with the fandom, they knew arcs that could be there. Whether it was the arc with Boba Fett and Cad Bane, or the arc with Yoda and going to Kashyyyk with the Wookiees. We do know the incredible arc that was turned into a book with Dark Disciple. There are so many incredible arcs that could have been there that weren't. And I think that's one of the things that people were a little bit frustrated by. They wanted something else. This was the final season of the Clone Wars. They wanted everything to be epic in every sense of the word. And so on that, I can't necessarily blame them. It is interesting because these episodes too, as originally written, there were not two sisters, there was only one boy. And so the episodes were completely rewritten. And I think sometimes in maybe the episodes themselves that does show a little bit that you've kind of split the action in different ways between more characters than maybe felt necessary to be there. But to me, this show is about Ahsoka and Rex. And the two arcs before we reach the final arc are about Rex and Ahsoka, putting them in the positions that they need to be in so that by the end of the show, they're where they need to be to make the decisions they're going to make for that.
And encountering people who reinforce their disillusionment with the way everything's been going.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
And ironically, both sets of characters wind up influencing each other within the context of the Bad Batch.
Yes.
It's all connected, baby.
Yeah.
It's all connected. And it's beautiful as a result.
Yep.
And it's while this arc with the Martez sisters, this is not one of those arcs where it's like, what's the first arc of the Clone Wars you'd show? Wouldn't be this one. Absolutely not. This is deep dive territory right here. But I would, now that everything's come out, even though I'm a big proponent of watching in release order, I would condense this. And I think if you show it closer to Ahsoka's departure, maybe right after Ahsoka's departure from the temple, and take no breather between it, I think it makes more sense for people. So I think there was just too much distance, basically. But to your point, I think you put a finger on something too. It's not what people wanted. This is
right.
I know what's supposed to happen, and I this isn't what I wanted. I'll call that prequel syndrome, where they got essentially the Phantom Menace is a lot like the Martez sisters arc. It's not what you're expecting. The Jedi aren't quite where you think they are going to be. They're going on an adventure that you don't think is very Jedi-like to begin with.
Right.
But at the end of it all, huge influence on everything else that you know and understand about the saga.
Yeah.
So this is the Phantom Menace saga, basically.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I do, again, I think it comes down to expectations, and I can't necessarily fault people for, when it comes to the series and kind of what you wanted as a fan. It does make sense. But at the same time, I think when I think about what this series of episodes does in light of where we're going with ending the Clone Wars, again, this is about ending this for these two characters to which we didn't know their fates when the show started. we knew their fates because, in some ways, because of what we got in Rebels. But going back here, I think that this just, to me, these 4 episodes work. And like you said, and I think this is really important, I don't think anybody should hear us say that these are perfect episodes, or, I don't know that maybe that I wouldn't say that there's some maybe possible refinement that could be done with these episodes to make them even better. But I do think that these thematically are the episodes needed to tell the story of the characters of Ahsoka, and then, of course, Rex with the Bad Batch episodes, so that when we get to the final arc, those characters are in the headspace they need to be at for this show to end the way that it does. And, of course, we both agree this show ends magnificently. I mean, it's one of the best things that Star Wars has ever done.
Look, you have to get there somehow, is what I'll say. And people love the big hits. They love the climax. They love the battles. And I think that people have gotten less patient. But you do need the story elements that get people to certain places and put them in the position they need to be. And so I think that there is a little bit of impatience on the part of the audience with stories like this, because there are other stories like this that occur throughout the Clone Wars, and they are constantly cited by people as, I don't know if I really like that one. So it's like, it's all a part of the larger story.
It's all a part of the plan, folks. It's all a part of the plan.
But not everything needs to be the sail barge fight in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to get there. And it's when you're telling long form like this, it's different than the films, the first 6, where it's hits. It's like jazz. It's you're hitting the important notes, and then I can work with you and mentally get in between and move in between in the spaces and the notes that you're not playing, sort of thing. This is long form. You're fulfilling the storytelling long form of filling in those gaps. And again, like I said, and you and I agree, it can be imperfect, and it doesn't need to be the first arc I would ever show somebody. But this is a very worthwhile story for what it does accomplish and what it does illustrate about the state of everything, the state of Ahsoka's heart and mind, and getting us to the point where we can have that final, this is the prelude to the final arc.
Yeah. No, I mean, I 100% agree with you. And I think, one of the things is that it just creates a really interesting series. And I think what I love about it is that it was not afraid to, and this is something about the Clone Wars in general, and I think Dave learned this from George, which is to take your time to tell the stories, to get the characters where they need to be. And this might not have been what everybody wanted, but I do feel like in the long run, it's best for the character development for somebody like Ahsoka. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't fault anybody if this is not exactly as they thought about the final season, exactly what they thought of. But the more I've thought about it, the more I'm really comfortable with the episodes.
I think they work, and that's all that is most important with everything, aside from the ultimate question: where can people find you online?
Yeah, you could find me all over the place under the moniker MattRushing02 on social media. You can also find me here on the network doing Owl Posts I did with Drea Kaufman. That is a finished show. It is all about Harry Potter. We talked about every single chapter of the Harry Potter series, one chapter at a time. And then you can find me over on the TFM network, on our side of the network there, talking about all of the fandoms that we love outside of Star Trek. It's called the 602 Club. And not only there in that feed will you find the main show, the 602 Club, but you'll also find some shows that John and I do together. One is called Snyder Cuts, and the other is called Assembling Avengers. So we've got some bonus shows for you there as well. It's so much in that feed. Over 400 episodes for you to enjoy. So enjoy that. You can also find me doing Literary Treks, The Orb, and Warp 5. Literary Treks is about the books and the comics of Star Trek. The Orb is about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And Warp 5 is about Star Trek Enterprise. Now, John, if people are wanting to catch up with you, though, and see what else you've got going on these days, where can they find you?
Oh, I'm just trying to think of that 602 Club feed. You said there's more than 400 episodes. I got to be on at least 100 of them, right? At least, right?
I have never done the count, but I'm pretty sure that that's probably the case.
It's probably accurate. But yes, Snyder Cuts was a very interesting journey, and so is Assembling Avengers. So you guys should check that out over there. And you can find me right here on this network co-hosting another show called House Lights, where we look at the work of directors, either their entire career or select works from different decades and different thematic elements that we select and everything like that. It's a lot of fun. That's with Tristan Riddell and Darren Moser. And you can find me out there on the internet, in the wilds of the internet. I am Kessel Junkie, KESSELJUNKIE. Look for me on Letterboxd, but I'm your social network of choice. I'm pretty sure I have a Facebook account, but I don't care about that. Look for me on Letterboxd. That's more fun. And anyway, for all of that being said, I can't get over like the whatever fabric softener they're using, these robes. I mean, it's like wearing pajamas at this point. Like it is just very liberating. I'm looking forward to getting into a lightsaber fight with somebody because I feel like I could move free as the wind. So let's go look up some trouble, Master Rushing, and let's close these negotiations.
John, negotiations are closed.